let's get into it. Do you want to show us what you've done so far?
All right, let me share the screen.
Okay, great.
Okay. So imagine you're like on the org, right? And then you want to make like a custom field, right?
Okay,
And so this tool, you open it here, it's like an extension, and you'll have an ability to change org in the future. But right now it doesn't, like it's still work in progress. And
sure.
so, for example, we can have create formula field that adds first and last name. So the way I've done it is it will try to understand users' intent, and then it will try to understand what the requirement is, and then ask the right questions, hopefully. Yeah.
You're using natural language to do work on the Salesforce org. Uh,
Yes.
okay, great. So it responded to you to create a
Right.
formula
So
field. I need to know the
right now
object.
it's slow for few reasons. Usually it's way faster. It's actually, I find that when you type the first message, it actually responds slow, but then once after the first message, I don't know, maybe connection gets established
Okay.
and it processes way faster and it goes like really fast. So yeah, as you can see, I think this is the most powerful tool that we have for conversation because it allows me as a developer to tell AI that, first of all, it needs to understand the intent of the user, in this case, create a formula field. Then once it understands intent, I give it myself the requirement. So I don't make it come up with the requirement itself. I'll
Hmm.
try to guess it. I say that, okay, to create formula field, you need those things. You need to know where on which object to create the field. You need to know what the formula is. And you also need to know the field name, right? So those three things. And I say, okay, find those three things in the whole conversation. And it tries to get that information. So in this case, we can see that the formula is already there because it adds first and last name. So we are lacking object and field name. And that's exactly what it's asking. So what I can do is I can say, make it on contact. However, I'm not sure what to name it.
Oh, wow.
Give me some suggestions, and it will actually go ahead and give me suggestions on what to name it. Maybe not always.
It's being a little stubborn.
Yeah.
So it's figured out that you want to make a formula field. It knows what the formula is. Now it knows the
Yeah.
object because you told it it's on the contact object. Oh, and now it's giving you suggestions for the field name.
Yeah. And then I can say, yeah, that works. So this is still work in progress, right? So this conversation flow can be adjusted properly. And sometimes it just has like low performance, but there are ways to mitigate it. But also you can see it responds way faster than the first message.
Yeah.
So,
Is it
so
going to
what we can
work?
do, we'll see
All right.
work. And there you go.
It did it.
So, yep, any full name formula field. And then it also does suggestions, like you can add to page layouts and modify permissions and so on. So now if we refresh the page, there should be full name custom field, which is a formula field. Full name custom field, this is formula field, and there's formula first and last name, right?
Wow.
So what we can also do is we can, for example, you see it says help text formula made by GPT-3. Then I can say modify help text on full name field on the contact object. And then what it will be able to do, it will be able to find that field. So this is a field that we just made. So it's custom field, and it's able to search inside the org to find that field and do something with it.
Wow.
So again, it looks like
So
the first message takes longer. Yeah.
you can do all sorts of things, all sorts of different work on
Yeah.
a Salesforce org. So I've seen you make a formula field. Now you're modifying a property of the field, the help text property.
Yeah.
What other
And
things?
so it works basically within the org, right? So it's grounded to your Salesforce org, right? So whatever org you're connected to, it's grounded to it, right? So this
Okay.
is the source of truth for it, right? So it takes all the information and uses API calls to know what the org already has and to help you with whatever you already have, right? So it's going to be existing flows, it's going to be existing fields. So whatever automations you have, it's going to be able to help you modify it or maybe create a new automation, whatever you want, but it's going to be grounded to your org. So I say, I want help X to say podcast. And yeah, it asks if that's all. I'm going to say that's all. So basically it confirms that if there anything else I want to modify. So this is an example of like conversation flow, right? So I added confirmation at the end, testing out if confirmation works and if it's actually interesting. Okay, so there you go. Now it's updated. Now if you refresh the page, the help text is going to say podcast. There you go.
Wow. Okay,
As a
cool.
request. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can do all sorts of work inside the Salesforce org with
Yes.
natural language. And on the back end, it's using Salesforce APIs and it's using metadata from the org to figure out what the org already looks like so that it can know what kind of objects to work on, what kind of field names, what kind of help text that it can modify. That's pretty much how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also able to understand API names based from your natural language. So as you can see, I said here full name, right? But the field name is actually full underscore name underscore underscore C. And
It
I'm
figured
also
it out.
using natural language. Yeah, so I retrieve like all the fields available, and then I say find the user requested this field, find it in that list of all the fields, and then it finds the API name and says, oh, I found it. That's the field the user is talking about. And the same with the object. So it's like able to understand all of it. That's how it's able to understand. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. Why do we want to use this? And before you answer, let me go ahead and in case we have anyone in the audience that doesn't know what Banjaxed does, we do a ton of work on Salesforce. We work with companies all over the world that are trying to improve their business operations by improving their Salesforce org, by matching their org up to their actual business needs. So this is what we do all day, every day. We also build products on Salesforce. So Eugene, how do you think this is going to help us at Banjaxed?
So initially, it's gonna be pretty simple and just like a little bit workflow improvement, right? So it's gonna be easier. For example, you could be on a meeting and client maybe ask you to create a formula field, which is pretty simple. You can go ahead and do it, right? So you open it. Okay, so it's this client. So when you change the client, and then once you change the client, you type in your request that I want a formula field that does this, and then you press enter, and then it's gonna create right there, right? So it's basically an efficiency tool right now. However, I envision that the real value in this tool is going to be in the future when it's going to be able to understand more of automations and help you debug certain issues. Because while we do a lot of development, I would say around 50% of that is development and 50% is helping solving issues that clients have in the org.
Gotcha.
And when you fix the issue, it's usually hard to find the bug. But if you had someone to go through entire org, because you come in this client's org and you know nothing about it, there is nothing that you know, and then what you can do is you can use this tool to first discover the org, right? So you can ask, I'm looking for the flow that does something like this, and then like this functionality, and then it's going to look on existing flows, read descriptions, and try to understand like, okay, so probably this is the flow you're looking for, and it will give you API name. And then you can say, okay, so this flow doesn't work correctly. This is the issue I'm getting. So what could be the issue? And it's going to go in and scan everything, right? It's going to scan every single metadata. So it's going to try to find simple issues, right? If issue is not in the logic, it's going to be able to find it. And I think this is really the powerful, because now it takes a really long time. It takes a couple hours at least to understand the org, understand automation, understand the flow, and then find the issue could take even longer, because there could be so many little pieces that you need to check, and you have to click through interface, and you need to check like, okay, so is this field correct data type? What does this field do? What does that field do? And you have to go ahead and check descriptions or check with the client like what it does. But AI will be able to understand most of it and guess what could be wrong, so it narrows down your search, and instead of 2 hours you'll spend like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And that is value as a business that we can then return to the client. I think
Absolutely.
AI is going to change all businesses, right? And we want to be ahead of that. And whoever can return that value back to the client is going to be a more valuable company and is going to win in the long run of serving clients.
And so I also envision another use for this tool is that eventually it can be given to the clients themselves, to their orgs. And so what they will be able to do, like, for example, it's not a demo because this functionality is like, this is stage one, we just use it like internally for simple things. And stage two, we use it internally for complex things. And then stage three, I think the clients will be able to use it as
Right.
their own tools. So imagine you're like on this page layout, you'll be able to open it and type, I want level field to be at the very top instead of at the bottom. And you just say it in natural language, right? And it just modifies the layout. So for people who do not know how to administer Salesforce org, it will be tremendous help because now instead of going to the email or Slack and contacting their contractors or admins, they're going to ask, oh, I want this page layout to be moved there. And it's going to take a while. But now you can just do it in a minute or less by just typing it. So you have like a personal admin that's capable of simple tasks. And I think that's where real power is going to come in.
There's two things that I need to say before we wrap up the podcast. One is that for anyone that's worried about the security aspect of this, we have not put this through the full security review process. However, we're totally on top of that aspect of it. The data flow, and this could be a 3-hour podcast by itself in terms of the data flow, which parts go to ChatGPT, which parts go to Salesforce. We are not sending any confidential record data to any third party open APIs. We're totally on top of that. And if you're interested in that, you can DM us and we can dive further into it. But the last thing I just want to note is just to give Eugene props and credit for doing all this work and for building this tool. The tool is amazing. It's going to make our team better. It's going to allow us to serve our clients better. And the last thing I want to say is just to give a shout out through the words of a client. We had a client that recently gave us a testimonial. And if I recall correctly, it said, Eugene, you've done more in 15 minutes for our Salesforce development than the previous team had done in 3 weeks. And so that's the kind of work that Eugene delivers. And that's what we want to deliver as a company for our clients, is to help them achieve their business goals faster and more efficiently through using our services and our tools. Thanks again, Eugene.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm always happy to share this tool, and because it gets me more excited and
Yeah.
makes me work more on it when I show it to people. Because when you work on it, you see it every day and it's not impressive anymore. And you lose understanding of like how amazing the tool is. But when you show to people, it like blows their mind and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's amazing tool. I have to work on it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen you do demos that, like you said, blow people's mind because it really does a lot of versatile things that we didn't even fully cover in this demo, but I think it's going to be a
Mhm.
game changer.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Cool, Eugene. All right. Thanks again. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Sure.
You too. Bye.
Bye.